Some Christians are concerned that Ron Paul wants to end foreign aid to Israel, so it's important we discuss this topic. First of all, Paul wants to end all government foreign aid, not just to Israel. His reason for being against all foreign aid is that it is wealth redistribution. It's taking money from one group of people and giving it to another group of people. If wealth redistribution is immoral domestically, how can it be moral internationally? If it is charity or humanitarian aid we wish to give, it is best given by voluntary individuals and private organizations. Forced charity through taxation is not charity. Besides, government foreign aid usually does more harm than good. It's a transfer from government to government, meaning the aid goes straight to government leaders, not to the less fortunate who actually need it. The recipient government then decides how to use the aid, oftentimes using it as a means to stay in power. For example, we send aid to communist governments such as Cuba, China, and North Korea, and to Islamic governments such as Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia. Why are we supporting dictatorships that oppose biblical principles and persecute local Christians? We sanction, bomb, and invade many of the same countries we send aid to. This is the schizophrenic nature of the U.S. foreign relations. It is immoral, ineffective, and there's no constitutional authority for it. Foreign aid is nothing more than international welfare, and the Bible always gives the duty of providing welfare to the church, never to civil governments. Missionaries risk their lives every day to bring true hope and true peace to foreign territories. Only until churches become more eager to finance long-term mission groups, rather than forfeiting their role to the government, will we see significant progress among the poor, the sick, and the oppressed around the world. So, what about modern-day Israel? Many Christians agree that we should end foreign aid, but any cuts to Israel are off limits. Politicians speak as if allegiance to Israel is as important as their allegiance to America. This mindset is often due to a particular interpretation of the Bible called Christian Zionism. Zionists typically interpret God's promise to Abraham in Genesis 12:3 as their reasoning for supporting the nation of Israel at all costs. God says to Abraham, "I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." It is concluded, therefore, that the United States must always have an alliance with Israel for military defense and financial aid if we are to remain within God's blessing. This interpretation should raise some suspicion when you consider that God warns against alliances with ungodly nations. The Israeli government has anti-missionary laws, refuses citizenship to Jews who convert to Christianity, provides free abortions to females in the Israeli military, and has rampant legal prostitution. That doesn't sound like a government Jesus wants us to blindly support. But even if you agree with the Zionist interpretation, Paul's argument is that the U.S. aid does not bless Israel. We send 3 times as much aid to Israel's enemies in Muslim countries than we do to Israel herself. Our policies undermine Israel's sovereignty by making them more dependent on America. We try to tell Israel how to manage their borders, we interfere with their peace negotiations, and we frequently condemn them when they defend their national security. When Israel bombed Iraq's nuclear reactor in 1981, the U.S. government, including President Ronald Reagan, condemned Israel for the attack. Paul was one of the only members of Congress to stand up for Israel's right to defend herself. This hardly describes someone who doesn't support Israel. If the premise of Christian Zionism were correct, perhaps America's economic turmoil should be seen as a direct consequence of not being a blessing to Israel. Paul wants Israel to be a free and prosperous nation without the U.S. government telling her what she can or cannot do. This makes Ron Paul the most pro-Israel candidate for president in 2012.